So, today we have my beautiful guest Kirk, and he's been in Byron playing, collaborating with different musicians for a while now, and quite often you'd find Kirk playing by the main beach park down in town, and the first time I noticed you were there practicing bass. I think, on a little amplifier, and I was enjoying your bass line, and I sat there for quite a long time. How long have you been in Byron?
Not quite 2 years, and I'd never been here before. First of all, thanks for having me.
You're very
Francesca. Yeah, so not quite 2 years, and I'd come up. I'm quite open about this, but I was a registered nurse for about 20 years. And I was working in secure psych units and prisons and crisis teams, emergency departments, those kind of things. There was a lot of violence, a lot of conflict, and really no opportunity to get over that conflict. And I just found increasingly that I was drinking far too much. So then by the time 2020 rolled around, I had also injured my back quite badly, and then my life kind of fell apart. So I had quite a good, like a privileged upbringing, I suppose you'd say, and I had a lot of opportunities and a lot of education and all that sort of stuff, but it all fell apart. 2020 was a bad year for everybody because of COVID, but for me it was particularly bad. Like I had a spinal fusion, this relationship that I'd been in had broken up, and, I had to leave nursing for good for then. And that was the only job I knew. And also I had this massive problem with alcohol, and I needed to quit. And I really needed to do something about it. So I checked myself into a residential rehab. And then it's just a long story of rehabs, relapse, being sort of cut off essentially from my family who had just had enough. And then I just scrabbled to try and get myself back on my feet. And all the time that I did that, because I was in and out of homelessness, I would just bring a guitar to the street and I would start to sing. And sometimes people would sit down next to me and just sing their hearts out. And it just gave me this sense of community that I didn't have because I was entirely cut off at that point. It was like a lonely road, but I could create a mobile lounge room just by playing in the street.
Yes, for sure. Wow. And that's what makes you stick around in Byron as well, I guess.
What happened was I had been sober for about 14 months, and my dad died in the United States. He lived in Charleston, and I was running through airports to get to his bedside. He held on for me. And I just got there in the nick of time, and he died shortly afterwards, and it was quite emotional. Got through all of that. Was really glad to be sober for the funeral and all that sort of stuff. And then after that, I think I moved back to northwestern Tasmania, and I was fairly isolated there, and my car had broken down, and I had these 2 dogs for company, and I was just slowly going nuts. And eventually, I think the social isolation got on top of me, and I relapsed, and I drank only for about a month, but it hadn't got any better. It was still pretty bad. So I had this fear of homelessness, this pathological fear of it, because I'd been homeless before and I knew how bad it was, and I thought, what happens if I relapse? But I was facing a winter of homelessness in Tasmania, which I'd done before, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that again. And I'd sent a mate who I'd been counselling for addiction up to Byron Bay because I thought, well, there's the Buttery here, and somebody else had said it's a really good place to go and recover. And in this recovery Dharma group that I was in, it was a Buddhist group, we would introduce ourselves. It's like, hi, I'm Kirk. I'm from, Lutruwita, which is the Aboriginal term for Tasmania. And there was a couple of ladies actually from up here who were like, hi, I'm such and such. I'm from Bundjalung country. And I just liked the sound of that, Bundjalung, I liked it. I didn't even realise when I sent my friend up to Byron Bay that it was Bundjalung country. And when I got on a plane because I was facing eviction from this house, so I took all my worldly possessions and came up to Byron Bay. I'd never been here. I was coming up here, I asked ChatGPT, will I have a better chance at staying sober because I really want this. I've lost everything. If I go to Byron Bay, and it said, yeah, for these reasons, you know, it's easier to get into. They're more supportive and more understanding, less stigmatizing of addiction in Byron Bay than certainly in rural Tasmania. So I came up here, and at first I slept rough, you know, and I was afraid that I was going to relapse, but I'm like, hang on, Kirk, you've been homeless before and you got out of it quite quickly as long as you stayed sober. So, excuse me.
No.
So I kept my head straight. I pitched my tent. The people that were next to me, they were all disorganized, and it was raining. I arrived in June of 2024. Don't know if you remember those heavy rains. It was just like pouring down, and I was in the forest at the back of the Yak, pitched next to these other people, but I'm a good camper.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, buddy, I saw how you pitched your tent. Let me fix it for you, because I knew that his tent would flood.
Yeah.
And that strategy of like, we work better as a group, showed the people that run those services in Byron Bay that I was an asset, not a drain.
Oh.
So I still have really close relationships with Fletcher Street and with the community centre and those other places. But I started playing music, of course. And there were buskers all up and down the street, and this wonderful bohemian energy and people fire dancing and, you know, just somebody, you could walk, everybody gathers together to watch the sunset on the beach.
Yes.
And there'll be some girl just dancing randomly, this interpretive dance, not really seeking an audience at all.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, how lovely, you know, and I filmed one particular girl. I was like, oh, is that a modern dance or whatever? She said, oh, it was some sort of embodied spirituality that she was doing. It was something, you know, it was something sort of quirky and cool, and I vibed with it. Yeah. And the more I played on the street, the better I got. And people were like, wow, you're getting really good. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm as surprised as you are. Like, I don't know how it happened. I just got out of the way. And then I realized that I didn't just come here. I was kind of brought here by Bunjalung. I had this sense of this spirit of country that was female. It reminded me of my grandmother. Oh. And it liked to be entertained and would dust you off, you know? Yeah. And then I saw all this evidence, and I know this is mythology, so it's, you know, using evidence to talk about spirit is a, you know, contradiction in terms, but I see all these other people with the same story that had come up here that had been healed. I met a girl the other night and I filmed her, and she was dancing and with ribbons, and it was like a Disney princess, and she had music in the background, and now she's all up and down the Gold Coast busking and doing children's parties. She said she'd had a glum life in the UK. And then when she came out here, she discovered a new zest for life and she took up dance. She'd never danced before. And yet she was tremendous. And that's happened to me. And it's happened to other people. They've just come here and been given this gift of creativity or taken in a new direction with it.
It's so interesting how you mentioned this, because I met I think, it was 2004, like towards the end of 2005. There was a lovely girl from one of the Asian countries. I think she might have, oh my God, not Vietnam.
Right.
But from
Southeast Asia.
Yeah, from Southeast Asia, and she plays no drum. She's participating with no music, and I noticed that she's not the first one to have, you know, that I've encountered who plays nothing, sings nothing, no interest in music, but they come here. And there's another Chinese as well that born and raised. I mean, he migrated to Australia when he was 2 years old. Lives in Sydney all the time, and then he recently came to Byron, and he started picking on an instrument. So, I always say, well, when you come to Byron, even if you're not an artist, you will become one.
Yeah, if you stay.
It's true.
And if you listen, I think people come you know, like I see people go to drum circles and they have never drummed before, and they say, "Oh, I don't have any sense of rhythm." And I say, "Yeah, I didn't think I did either, but I've got an incredible sense of rhythm, but I don't. Like my Kirk Buttermore doesn't have, you know, this small self. Yes. It is primal. It's in my DNA. It's in your DNA. Drumming is the way that we co-regulate and have for thousands of years. Yes. It's like, here's a pattern. I'll show you how to calm down by living in the moment fearlessly with this beat. And let's all join together and do this. And, you know, I'll lead you and like, here we go. We've got something. Can you hear the signal? And with drumming, it's letting go. It's letting go of all that.
Absolutely.
Oh, what does he think of me? What's my position in this social hierarchy? I need to play cards. Am I hitting this right? So that all of that becomes a high-level game, and it's stressful and it takes bandwidth. And if you just let your hands drum,
yes,
then you're drumming.
And you know, because it's a direct physical interaction with the instrument. And I mean, music is like meditation, yet it's, you know, a form of a prayer, but it's like a spiritual relationship with your own self. But just being in tune with something so like incredible as music, I think it gives this sense of making, like, you know how you make love in such a beautiful way, but with music.
Yeah, you're so present with it, and
yes,
it's such an intimate experience of the world as it is.
And you just become so resonate with your that side of self that is so peaceful, and it's a process of becoming, right? So then you are, you know, being more acceptance of yourself,
right?
One of the best thing that I see about you is like the consistency, always practicing and practicing. I mean, after 5 hours, after 3 hours every day, and you know, few months later, you're doing you play with my friend Marcel at the beach hotel, the back room during the Blues Fest time, which was cancelled, and I was like, "What? He's already on the stage?" And you were like, really good with the harmonica. How long have you been playing the harmonica?
Oh, the harmonica I picked up when I was about 13.
Oh, right.
And I was just one of those kids, like this neurodivergence all through my family. Yeah. And I was just but I was kind of the black sheep because I couldn't focus. And then I discovered, only last year I got diagnosed with hyper-focused ADHD. Like I don't have a deficit of attention. I have trouble managing my attention and choosing what's important. So I'll zone in on something, as you said, I'll practice for 3-5 hours and forget to eat, you know, forget to do the stuff that I have to do to be in the world. And then I'm, oh, where are my car keys? I've been here for 5 hours. I'm slightly sunburnt and I've been playing the bass for all this time because I'm in the zone. Oh, yeah. And I'm just purely, I can just drop back almost into spirit from that. And Marshall, that's an interesting story because it happened about, well, I suppose when I first arrived here and I was still sleeping rough, you know, in the evenings, I could go and sit in the bar and listen to a guy, and it was like a lounge room, and I wasn't drinking, you know, because I was determinedly, and I've taken video of all of that. I kept a video log of that whole thing. But yeah, so I was sitting there talking to him, and it's like it had got to about this time of year, and all the tourists had dropped off, and there were a few guys in the pub, but they weren't listening to him. They were just watching the rugby.
Yes.
I was talking to him because he wanted company and he's getting paid anyway.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, hey, I've got a harmonica if you know, like, want to jam? He's like, all right, might as well pull it out. Cool. And he's like, hey, you're really good. I said, oh, I've been playing for a really long time. And I had. So I've always been quite musical, and I picked up the harmonica. I picked up the piano first. My parents said I was singing before I could talk when I was a kid.
Wow. And
then, like, always had really good pitch and could hear more from, like, oh, you can't hear that? Like, oh, there's a relationship between that note and that note. And other people wouldn't recognize that. And I'm like, oh, okay, they can't hear that. Just like if somebody's going to like an athlete catches a ball, they can see all this spin on the ball that I can't see.
Yeah.
You know, they can see that. So, and I thought, you know, I need to draw a line in the sand with this. So in my 20s, I went, I'm going to have voice lessons. And the only thing that was available was classical voice. Then there was this guy that I knew who is now a baritone with the Australian Opera. And he taught me for a while, and he gave me this thing that Christians play at Christmas, Handel's Messiah. And it's like, every valley, this whole operatic tenor repertoire. And he didn't think I would be able to do it because I'd only started like a couple of months before. And I just looked at it and shall be exalted. And I took it back to him the next week. And he went, how did you do that? Like, I didn't expect you to be able to do that. I said, well, I was looking at the score and then I set up a thing so I could play the MIDI at the same time and then I could hear it and I could see the music go up and down. And then there were just the dynamic inflections and that all sort of, and then it just came to me, you know. And
so impressive.
Yeah, then the next week I went back and he said, now look, I'm not getting rid of you. This is a step up for you. But I found another teacher for you. And she was at the time a soloist with Australian Opera. And she had a real gift with tenors. She was a soprano herself, Sharon Prero. And I had lessons with her for about 7 years. And she was always trying to steer me towards music theatre and opera and stuff. And I did learn a fair bit of operatic repertoire, and I sang with the Melbourne Opera Chorus a couple of times. But there are relatively few roles for that. Yeah. There's not a lot of meat on those bones, you know? So big scores, had to learn, like, wait for long periods for my turn to sing. It wasn't enough for me. And, you know, I moved in other directions. Plus, I had a passion for all music, not just that. You have to be kind of almost like a custodian of the art form.
Yes.
But coming back to what you were saying about that, you know, that intimacy of sex or of being present with music and it bringing you back to something really primal, like, this is important, listen to this. So what opera singers did, and they did it for years, and I couldn't work out why this guy singing in another language, "O dolce bacio languide carezze," was moving me so much. And what he's singing is, "Oh, soft kisses, oh, languid caresses." But he's singing it from inside a jail cell where he's been condemned to death. And the rest of the aria continues, you know, like he's remembering the sweetness of his love with this woman that he's met, her soft footprints on the beach. And he said, you know, alas, I'm sentenced to die, but I've never wanted to live more. And the power of that, the alchemy of the emotion, using all the resonant spaces in your body, transmitting that emotion to people. Yeah. I remember I had sung to somebody and just, that gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, I had goosebumps.
Oh, yeah.
Like, slowly.
But I give myself goosebumps all the time. Like, I live in a place where I'm processing emotional resonance all the time. I'm processing story all the time in order to be a good servant to music. And so, yeah, I'm giving myself goosebumps. And then other people occasionally listen to that and go, wow, that really moved me. Went and told my teacher because I thought she would think it was a compliment. She said, Kirk, that's what we do. That's our palette. That's the alchemy. And that I've since learned that if I don't turn from any suffering in my life, because grief is just as exquisite as joy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's part of the human experience. If I don't turn from any of that, allow myself to feel it fully and just incorporate it into my art, my music, then it's burned clean of me. And I end up as a better servant to the music as a result of being in service to a higher power, you know, which I sort of think of as this great spirit Bunjalung that's given me this gift of music.
It's amazing that you actually became very aware of yourself, because you could have all that and it just suppressed. You never explore it, even if you know it. because we are so, so structured into societies and what's normal. And when you come along, you can't fit into that, whatever is normality, or you kind of, the thing that I appreciate from your story is that you create your own sanctuary to be comfortable and explore. But then this is through art, the platform. The foundation is art that saves you somehow, kind of your salvation.
But there's no barrier between me and the world in that.
Yeah.
And I think people are almost concerned for me sometimes because they think I'm like pathologically unself-conscious. Like I'll just be dancing and vibing, in the middle of something. It's like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that here. You should be concerned about what people think of you. I'm like, well, no, they'll only be thinking that for a minute and then it'll be gone.
Yeah.
It's just like my thoughts about my own self. I don't have a strong concept of self.
Yes.
And I think with a lot of musicians, artists, people, like with the drumming, they put a limit on something that's essentially limitless by saying, I have no sense of rhythm. Yeah, you do. Just, you're taking up bandwidth by saying that when you could be drumming. Just drum. Like, follow me. Here we go. Let your body do it. And same with my own. If I attached any ego to, like, people go, oh, geez, you're a really good bass player. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how it happened, really. I really don't. And also, I don't even really consider that part of my identity. It's like if I was renovating a house and I used a router because I needed to put a hole somewhere, I wouldn't be a routist. Like I'm using that instrument to follow that frequency at that time. And it's a really good way, playing bass, because you're going into the root note, of getting into a song quite quickly. But then if you're singing at the same time, that develops this, it's not like you're layering tracks on top of each other. It's like my voice and my bass are the same track. It's all the same thing. And so the major thirds or the sevenths or whatever that you put in that color the chord, they happen through my voice, even though I'm playing the root and the fifth and the seventh on the bass. And so, and plus there's this element of being able to be percussive with the way that I play. So
That's true.
I can just follow that thread for as far as it goes without thinking about me, without thinking about, oh, I need to do this or I need to do that with my practice. Just like, oh, that's interesting. What would happen if I kept doing that? And as I said, like I just go down these rabbit holes with my focus and forget about the world.
Yeah, it's a raw experimentation without worrying about what's taught, what's been taught.
Yeah, and then I got to the point where I could just, like, I've had a good ear, but I was always like, oh, it's done. Maybe that's the wrong note. Oh. I'm getting in my own way by overthinking and creating barriers. I just vibe it. I actually literally asked my body, hey, can you just do this?
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing.
And then it's just like, yeah, sure. I mean, it might take me a little while, but yeah, I'll get it. And then, like, I'm there, like, almost too quickly.
Yeah, but I think that's because you understand allowance. Like when you allow, it's like life allows. It doesn't coerce. It happens because we allow, not because we forced it. And when we force it, we get rigid and we stay stuck.
And I see all these other people as well. I mean, the analogy that I often use is that if you are learning to drive a manual car, somebody will probably helpfully say to you, just put the accelerator down a little bit with your right foot and then just gently raise up your left foot until you hit the friction point and the car will take off. And that's how it works. They say that and it takes them out of their flow and, oh, geez, this is difficult. But they say it to you and it's nice of them to say it, but it's still entirely useless to you because you have to calibrate your nervous system to it.
Yes.
And like the more time you spend thinking about that, the less time you've got. You're still going to bunny hop. You just have to like feel where that point is. And then up here, that's the other thing. I took dance lessons as well, and I've become like quite a good dancer, even though I'd never done that before. And I observed the people that were good at it, and they had bypassed all that thinking. They were just vibing it. They had a collection of movements that they'd already learned, like a repertoire of movements. Yeah. And so it was easy for them to body roll, slide their spine, do a floor slide or whatever, because they were moving without conscious thought, and they could learn things without conscious thought because they were already in that flow.
Do you find it difficult to sing as you play the bass at the same time?
No.
I find it hard.
No, but again, like there was a conceptual shift, and that conceptual shift was, so like if I'm playing the bass line to I Wish, which is like bum 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 bum, looking back on when I was a little nappy-headed boy. It is all the same song. Like if I was thinking of it as, first I'm going to play the bass line and then I'm going to sing over the top of that, like you do when you're putting it on a computer to layer the track. It's like juggling. If you focus on any one particular ball, you drop all the balls because you need to pay attention to all of them moving in the air.
Wow. Oh, that's such an interesting thing to share. I think it's very valuable because you can. If I practice a piece of something, it's just I get stuck. Whether it's singing or something, I can get stuck because I am just into details and not. Or what makes it harmonizes well? How do I tone my voice and that kind of stuff? How do you do you notice when you sing, like when you wake up in the morning and your voice sounds different to in the middle of the day?
Absolutely, yeah. It's an instrument, and if I haven't drunk sufficient water, like I can hear there's a little bit of fluid on my cords right now. But like this is one of the other things. All these amazing performers come to Byron Bay, and I had the fortune to meet Prinny Stevens, who was on The Voice twice, and she's had this 20-year illustrious career and stuff. And I was talking to her after her gig, which is a Ladies of R&B gig at the Byron Theatre. And it was like just fantastic music. She was singing all the Whitney Houston classics, Mariah Carey, just all this really, yeah. She's a great singer, Prinny. And so I started talking to her afterwards, and I'm like, I kind of need to unlearn all this operatic stuff that I've done so that I can sing more contemporary stuff, because I wanted to sing soul. And I'd been thinking that for a while, because it's like the music of human struggle, of human experience. Yeah. You know, there's joy in it. When a man loves a woman, like he's singing his heart out, heartbreak. And what he does, though, he sings at the top of his chest range. So he never actually quite kicks over into that head voice. And that has that rasp and that struggle and so that struggle, that human experience is embodied in the music, like technically and musically, as well as, you know, in the content of like, it's been a long, long time coming, but I know that, you know, it's this kind of civil rights, emancipation. I've been stigmatized, you know, and I'm finding my way back to some sort of acceptance and redemption. About the voice in the morning, Prinny taught me this one, because I'm having lessons with her via Skype.
Is she living here?
She lives in Manly, but she has a brother that lives in the hinterlands. So I have them via Google Meet or video chat. Like, I was having them, you know, once a week for a while. I need to get back in contact with them.
That's really cool.
But this exercise for checking whether your voice is in top condition, you go to the top of your range. So what you're doing is you're compressing your vocal fold together, as it should be. And then any of those points along there where there's a little burr or a rasp, you sing through that, and it gives your vocal fold a massage. So in that way, you're analysing where you're at each day with your instrument, and you're taking care of it, sort of loosening it up, and getting ready to sing repertoire that day.
Oh, that's fantastic. You've got a professional training.
Yeah.
Training.
And as I said, I'd had it before.
Does he accept any more students?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can hook you up. But like that's another thing that I want to do as well, because there are so many people that prefer a face-to-face teacher, and
Oh yes, I do as well.
And I just kind of like undersell myself the whole time. Like I'm doing jobs gardening or driving tow trucks or whatever. I'm like, hang on a second, I could teach you. Like I've done all this opera, and I've done all this stuff.
Yeah.
Why? And I can teach you like on the spot.
Yes.
So yeah, that's been a journey as well. Because
it's a beautiful journey. Actually, it's more fulfilling, and do you feel like you're more yourself? More
definitely. But there's been a lot of so when I went to rehab, it was there was a Christian rehab in sort of like rural Tasmania on a farm, and it was like the public rehab. It was the only one. So there were a lot of people there that were on court mandated diversions from prison.
Yeah.
So, or they'd been in prison and they'd got out on parole or probation or something, but they'd still had drug and alcohol problems.
Yeah.
So they needed to come in there. So there was a very prison culture, and those guys, not all of them, but the culture that goes along with prisons is that they'll strip everything bare, every interaction. You know, like everything is weaponized or used in some way. So they would ask me to sing because they liked it. But then they would report me for singing in a public place because they could get brownie points for it. I'm like, fuck you guys. It was like so authoritarian. And then it got me to the point where my self-esteem was already in the toilet because, you know, like all this stuff had happened. Yeah. And then I'm like, is it okay to sing? Is it okay to have a voice?
Yeah.
And so like for ages, like even though I'd sung all this opera and stuff, I was like, oh no, I'll just play the bass. I'll just play the guitar. I won't like make those, you know, fully resonant noises that I know I can do. And so it sort of atrophied, and I'm like, you were never timid, Kirk. You were never timid. You know, this is a gift. Yeah. It's important that you take custody of it.
Isn't it crazy how social conditioning, just one person say one tiny thing, like when we were children as well, it could be an uncle who commented on something and then it stops us for progress.
Yeah, and it often does, and often it's very slight. But in this case, it was like, so I went from the rehab, then I was on the streets. You know, you can't just sing randomly in the streets. Like people are, well, you can sing more.
You can, but you may not.
Yeah, but
some places.
Then I was in this boarding house again, and this is all like during COVID lockdown in 2021 when it first started happening, and it was like, again, people just, because these men that I was living with, they were so dysfunctional, and they'd been rejected by everybody, and nobody wanted them, and they had no sense of agency or control in their life, and the way that they could have that sense of agency and control was in the boarding house to just enforce a pecking order and try and dominate other men who were similarly damaged to them. And that was how it was. So coming up to Byron Bay and not being shut down, no tall poppy syndrome, like, you know, oh, you want to sing bare-chested in the street? Good on you. Yeah. Do more of it. Love it.
Yeah.
You know, there's no tall poppy syndrome here. It's tall poppies everywhere.
But this is also one of the sense of homeliness being in Byron, like belonging to a degree, because you see people, or it can be yourself, but you feel like, oh, I'm free to be peacock today and then something else the next day, even with the way you dress, and you're free to, whether you go with the barefoot or not, no one's making a drama out of it, because everyone is sort of like, we've got a life to live. Everyone's going through something.
Having discovered that I was neurodivergent, that was huge for me last year.
Oh, yeah.
And because you have to bring along a family member, and my mother doesn't talk to me anymore. In fact, a lot of my family has cut me off. And because they just couldn't bear my addiction, and I don't bear any ill will towards them. But there's this narrative that they still tell about me. But I don't know them anymore. I haven't known them for years.
You're not that anymore.
No.
And that's also the thing with art. You evolve.
And so being up here, I can, because I have no boundaries on that. I have no, oh, he's this, he's that. No.
But to like, in another way, you have to see that if you don't misbehave, you don't really learn sometimes. Even if it's little misbehaving, like harmless. I mean, this is, of course, in a case where you kind of they consider that you did self-harm by being addicted to alcohol and that sort of stuff. But I think that we as a family should be, like realizing, wow, there's changes in you. I'm grateful to see that you're directing yourself in this way. But when that's and like I think that sometimes, aside from not getting support when you become good, when you transform your life into goodness, the lacking of support is just as much as when
Absolutely.
you're doing bad. And then also what I notice also, sometimes when you progress to a higher level or like on a different frequency to what you know, what you knew, where you were, not everyone is happy to see you progress.
Absolutely. Especially if they're not progressing and they feel stuck.
Yeah, but I feel like that's you're pulling yourself down by putting that on. Like, whoever don't feel happy about other people's progress, I feel like you really should not do that, because you have no idea the limitation that you.
That's exactly right.
You draw this line to say, this is my boundary. I'm going not beyond this boundary. It's a great sort of comfort zone, yeah.
See, having lost all that, losing the family connection stuff is not like once upon a time that really hurt. Yeah. And if it had just happened now, I expect it would really hurt again. But it's happened a long time ago, and I've evolved through that. And my suffering has been my greatest teacher in life, suffering and struggle. And when I stopped being a nurse and went to that rehab and everything was stripped away from me, my identity. It doesn't matter who you are here, you're just part of the system along here with these people that just got out of jail and will rob you blind given the chance. And I started training them in the gym and they respected me because I was, steady, and I was like, no, I'll put muscle on you. And some of them still contact me. But so that happened. And like, oh, okay, that's a new identity, but I don't want to get stuck here either. Oh. And so now when I think about my family, because other people, it's a touchstone, family, the possessions you have. That was another thing. So I had this house, but I couldn't afford to live in it. And all this stuff that I'd been accumulating over the years, and it was like, some of it was good stuff. It was like it was all sold out at fire sale prices in order to, either get the house on the market or rent it or whatever. And like that happened while I was in rehab and I had no control over it. And while it happened, it was like, oh my God, that's devastating, that thing. Yeah. But then ultimately that became so liberating for me, because now I can go where I please. I don't have anything to protect. And I've learned to do the same thing with the ideas that were holding me back, as well as the possessions. I don't have 2 rooms full of crap. I can't downsize because I've got 2 rooms full of crap that I haven't used in 2 years. I can't go anywhere else because I've got to protect that crap. No, you don't.
That's so true. We put insurance on things.
Yeah.
We become
that we don't
lovers.
Use.
We become lovers of things, not lovers of people. And we use each other rather than using the things.
And everything becomes transactional in our interactions because, no, what about my money? Because ultimately I'm protecting the things that I've accumulated.
But, when you think on a long, like, future time, when you apply future over the unknown, let's say, if you were to think, I might have a family, I have children, and my children have children, so then you have grandchildren. In this era of time, such modernism, modern way of living, you'd be lucky to be a granddad and there is one grandchild who constantly stay in contact and come and see you at your house, look at your family photo albums that you accumulated through the years, these amazing portraits that's displayed on the wall, how grand your ancestors were. You would be very lucky if there is, the third generation paying attention to that. Otherwise, like you say, everything that you accumulate will be packed up, sold out, end up in the op shop or whatever.
Exactly right.
And then you will not be even known. And if you don't make it to 100 or so years old, well, you're just a long gone history.
And that's the thing with Dad dying, you know, and the sort of the grief that I feel about him, because I grew up in close proximity to my dad, and like, because I've got such an ear for sound,
right.
like I can do his voice right now. God damn it, you're failing at this because you didn't apply yourself. You're feckless, Kirk. You didn't apply yourself, and this voice comes up like when I was stressed, and I realized I was telling myself a story because I was dysregulated and I was stressed that I was familiar with. And, you know, I could continue to be conditioned in the present moment into this, you know, elevated level of, you know, anxiety by my dead father's voice if I chose to. But I'm like, well, why is this telling me? What is this telling me? And, like, first of all, I welcome the fact that I still have that, because he doesn't, you know, exist on this planet in a physical form anymore. And the way that he's remembered is through my memories and the other people that remember him. And that's not all the time. And so if I have a wave of grief, it's like Dad's visiting me. But secondly, so we all carry the ones that went before. And that is the essence of beauty. It's like, this is so beautiful what happens when it goes. And this is like when you hear Shakespeare, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate, for rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. It's because it's impermanent. It's temporary. All of this beauty is it's only here for such a short moment, and it's going to be gone. And that's what makes it beautiful. And, so that's the essence of art, that it's all this spectrum of suffering and beauty, and the, you know, the beauty of having, say, talk about AI for a second, right? AI appears as though it can reason and it can generate music which actually moves us, and it can do all that sort of stuff, but it can't feel because it can't die, and it's not impermanent, and it doesn't even know if it's real or not. And so, but we have this sense of identity at times, which isn't consistent either. You get dementia, that goes. But we have this, we feel it. It's like, oh, when I lose that. And it's like, I don't turn from suffering anymore, because that's just as important a part of being human. Grief, suffering, all of that stuff, as joy is, as the good stuff is.
I mean, if you never break your heart, you never know that warmth.
Yeah, you never have the gratitude for the intimacy and the affection and the warmth, and it's like, this will be okay because I'm with my tribe or with my person or whatever. So you get that, but also, like, however clever you are, however much money you've got, like all of the equivalent of the modern day billionaires that lived before the 20th century, they all have one thing in common: they're all dead. And the resources have been redistributed. They couldn't take it with them.
There are random videos, or maybe not even random, but they're like YouTube channels. I used to come across a few years ago. I don't really watch so many things. It's just like so many things to watch, to choose. And but I'm really interested in cultural stuff, or sometimes historical stuff. And there was a few videos that I watched about these guys. They go to some abandoned village, and then they go through these abandoned buildings where once it used to be the greatest hotels with all the fancy swimming pool and all, and it just ran. It's all, you know, you imagine all these, not even just, sometimes just mansions, privately owned mansions, and has these amazing portraits. Like, it would have been so expensive to make this. Well, the glass, you know, how the Spanish windows glass with color glass and stuff. These are so ornate, so intricate, right? Complicated architecture and design left there. And that's what I mean. If you so worry about securing all this and loving all this, it becomes like, often it becomes nothing in the end. And so human connection is about the best that you can really build, because it's with human connection comes the expression of love, the expression of learning to be with each other and acceptance. And, we become, I think the more you want to connect with people, the more you become even more open. And then if you have judgment about skin color or anything, it just goes away.
Well, see, that's the thing about being homeless, is that, so when I was in the forest at the back of the Yak, and there'd be people that, had mental illness and they were on drugs and they were unreliable and stuff, but they were all right, I guess. And I'd help this guy pitch his tent so it didn't rain on him. And because I knew that, like, while I went to get food for us, somebody's going to have to watch my back.
Yes.
And so whoever you're with, like I just recently watched When the River Rose about the Lismore floods, and the sense of community that came up, like those people might have had their differences, but they were forced by necessity to work together and to overcome those differences. And it's like, well, I know this is the best you're capable of, and I don't expect you to do more, but can you please just continue to do that? And, and I'll help you with this. And that's what happened. And it, like, the Aboriginal people, the Koori male, they didn't expect the government to come and save them because it never has. And so they've already got over the anger about that. Yeah. Or they haven't got over it, but they've learned to operate within it without being affected by it. And I was talking to one of the filmmakers and she's saying, suddenly I realised that I had this, privileged white woman hat on, like that I was just going to have to make do because the government weren't coming. It was just after COVID and they didn't have the resources and they weren't deployed properly. Wow. And so we just had to get along, and we got along and we grew, and we realised that wherever we are, then we can't afford to make the most out of these differences because it takes resources to exclude people if they're contributing. If they're not contributing, then, we'll see you later, buddy. Like, I don't have any time for freeloaders.
Yeah, but if you want to progress, you want to evolve, you will only be hanging around the one that is contributing. That's, has to a degree, is not just sitting there and being...
No, and I don't even mean working. I just mean trying your best in some way to bring something. And that might be your time, because these are the most important resources I've discovered that anybody has, certainly me, is that my time and attention on this planet. When my dad died, I saw that. It's like, it's the way I show up. Like if Einstein, even one of these great scions of our time, that died in 1951 or whatever it was, if there's anyone still alive today that remembered Einstein, it's probably like a barista or somebody that served him in a cake shop, and they would be like, well, I didn't know all that much about his theories about energy, being proportional to mass as it approaches the speed of light squared. But he was always a very kind man. Like, he tipped very well. They would remember his human qualities and how he showed up. Yes. And despite his contribution to science, there are very few people that can actually understand that science. My son's an engineer, and I know that he could, and I know I probably could if I could be bothered, but I can't. I'd rather play the bass on the beach, So Einstein, as he was when he was alive, doesn't exist anymore. And that guy made a serious contribution to the human race. None of us last, however big our egos are. They're just stripped away by the sands of time.
How was it for you when you experienced loss with your dad? How did you cope with it? Because it would have been difficult, because you said you were going through a really hard time.
Actually, it was all right, because I lost...
How do you make peace with
right.
loss? Yeah.
Well, I guess the thing is, like, my dad didn't really love cleanly. He loved sort of sideways. He was abrasive. He probably had ADHD himself. He was very hyper-focused, and he'd received this, and had multiple projects half finished. And he'd received this generational transmission from my grandfather, who was a lineman, that climbed up and put those lines along telegraph poles. And then he became a pilot because he thought, I'll improve myself. And that proves you can never aim too high, right? So he's just like, I want to go up there. So anyway, he's done that, but then he tried to teach my dad that with his fists and not his brain. And that's just how he did things in America in the 1940s and 50s when my dad was coming up. And then my dad ended up going to Vietnam, with this healthy dose of that type of generational transmission. It's not all bad. It's not all trauma, but there is an element of that. And then that militant US culture. And when he came back, he was like, God damn it, get your shit in a row. Like he was a force. He was a large man, moving fast. People were intimidated by my father. And I've since noticed that, like, I don't intend that at all. But, if I'm moving fast, people get out of my way because I'm unsmiling and I'm moving fast. And no, that had been a real barrier to me being able to get help when I was homeless, because people, like, they might have helped somebody who was in their late 20s, early 30s, not old, and not intimidating. But they're more likely to cross the street away from an older man who's suffering.
Because when I saw you, I was like, always see you walking with your shoulders straight, and I thought he walks with a good composure. I always like that, because the last thing you want is this, and I feel like when I watch people doing this, I feel like I need to strap my back.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it does it. But it's that whole thing of like, stand up straight, fill your lungs, like act as though you have a place. And that was part of the discovery as well, I suppose, is that I've been so sort of stigmatized and excommunicated, and, addicts aren't popular because they do such destructive things.
Yeah,
and so we end up
human. They're still human beings.
Absolutely.
But emotion.
I mean, it's like, well, you chose this? Like, people don't understand it. And I got to the point where I was really kind of down on myself, and, I didn't know how to regain self-esteem. And I started picking up litter, like, without telling anybody. And so now, like, I post these reels on the internet and people comment, and it's like a lot of it's negative comment. I don't care what they say about me, because in the last 24 hours, I know that I've done 2 or 3 things for somebody without telling anybody about it. So I know I'm a good bloke. I've just got this constant thing. It's like, I know I'm a good bloke. And if you do that, you will build healthy self-esteem if you're coming from a place of having no self-esteem.
This is the thing, that everybody has a version of yourself. Your mom has a version of you that is different to the version of you that you know, and so are your friends, your siblings, and if you have to listen to them and live a life according to what definition people have of you, you're in a lot of trouble. You cannot live your life in the way you want to be. You cannot even enjoy the simplest thing, because this is how mom cuts the onion.
Right. And a lot of the time they're saying it because, like, it validates their own decisions. It's like, you need to do this. And it's like, no, those were the rules when you were growing up, that you got a degree and you studied law and you bought a house. But now nobody can afford to buy a house because, like, everybody invested in them, and now the property market's gone crazy. So those rules that you thought were going to last forever, and you're giving as, like, this is the rule and you should follow it, those change with time. And then at a certain point, the younger generation realizes that and has to explain back to the older generation why their ideas are no longer relevant.
Yes.
But the older people still have the money and they're still controlling it. Yes. So they have to explain very patiently that, like, the world has changed, Dad. And that's what happens. Generation after generation it happens.
Yes, that is. I think it applies to every culture now, because we are so dominant. We are being dominated by the American way of everyone has to be successful. Everyone has to be measured by fame and instant gratification of almost like eating 2-minute noodles, instant gratification. Yeah, you have to be so pleasing. So the content creators, let's say, some of them are really beautiful contents. Like I especially love art, so I go to see people, giving tips on paintings or this is how this riff or whatever. That kind of stuff I find them really incredibly beautiful to share with the world. But there's some that is just just dancing, right? And I did this one beautiful experiment because, cool.
Yeah.
My beautiful friend, he's been here for ages. And he's one of these figures around here that just doesn't care like you. He doesn't care about what people think. He just wants to spread joy.
Yeah.
And that's something that I absolutely am so grateful that he's around. And so he and we decided, okay, every time we see each other, we just get someone to film us, and then we do the hula hoop, and then we dance.
Right.
He teaches me.
Well, see, funnily enough, like when I first, like I really vibe with Cool now. I gave him like $500 the other day, and he's like, "Thanks a lot, brother. Have a great day, brother." And it was like I give him lifts and stuff, and we get along fine. But when I first got there, he was one of the people that didn't know what to make of me, because they'd seen all these influences come through Byron before. And I suppose in a seasonal town which has a lot of tourism, you get a lot of people that want to take things, and then people aren't sure how much they should invest in them, particularly in an area where you've got the highest homeless catchment area in Australia. And so, and I was filming things that I thought were interesting because I thought it would be entertaining, and I was like just so delighted by the magic of the things that, there's a girl roller skating down the street, just in the afternoon. She does it every day. And then there's Cool, and there's all these other people just doing this weird and wonderful stuff. And it's just, oh, hi. No, the locals don't bat an eyelid. No. So I started interviewing people that I thought were doing interesting things. And I started talking to this surfer, and everybody thought, oh, I must be exploiting him. No way. Like, we are really good friends. Yeah. But it was like, that was the way, by creating that content, that was about community, about spirit, about country, about discovering something. Absolutely. It was a way of using social media to lift everybody else around me.
Yeah, but these are what I was meant to share with you about Cool and I making this thing. Because my friend from France decided to stay in contact with me through Instagram. He's the younger generation,
right?
So I hesitated like for 2 years, and eventually he said, if you do want to be in contact with me, I use it a lot. And so he suggested, well, you can put your art, if nothing else, put your art then to share. And I say, okay, that's not a bad idea. So I'm really new to Instagram, and what I see, because I was just looking at the content that people do, and quite often the most viral stuff is just somebody else's content, and then the person who's reposting it, and it's just pointing fingers up to the video. And I'm thinking, what the hell? And so I put this one video we Cool recently, and we were just dancing, doing the hula hoop as we usually do that. Like, I put 3 videos so far of the 2 of us, and I have a more video through the years of him. And you know what's really funny? I put art stuff, like me doing the art, up to a week or whatever,
Nobody watches it.
Time, so many hours, right? The process of it on time lapse and stuff. And I can say almost no views, right? But the dancing, oh my God, with the hula hoop, just dancing. I mean, like anyone could do the hula hoop, right? The view through my page on Facebook was a lot more, and I'm thinking, holy cow, why is the world this bad? Like, not the world that is bad, but the what we see, it's just so instant. We're just looking at the body. I'm just dancing,
because like so much of your brain is dedicated to vision.
Yeah.
And so when you look at people, and this is why they say that 70% of communication is non-verbal. It's not what you're saying. It's how you're moving and how you're presenting and all these other subtle cues that I'm picking up about you. And so I'd played music and I'd done these music videos, but if I wasn't moving, people are way more interested in watching me dance than they are watching me play music, even though I play quite well.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. They're more interested watching me doing the hula hoop than watching me playing.
Because, and it's like, and I've studied the algorithm because I know more now which ones are going to go viral. And it's based on conventional media, which it's like if you and I are talking here and a fire breaks out there, even though it's a really interesting conversation, we're going to look at that fire. So if there's danger or, bad news travels fast, And yeah, but movement as well is more likely to get views. And if you're in a high traffic area where there are a lot of people, and you talk about something that other people are talking about or they care about, then and if you're a beautiful person holding a kitten, maybe, if you're in all those groups, then you will reach their news feeds. Yeah. Otherwise, you don't reach it.
Yeah.
But when it happens, all these people that don't follow me and they don't know the essence of me, they all show up suddenly on my feed, and they're like, what the hell? It's like they just woke up from a nightmare. And it's, or they're, like they're sleepwalking into my feed. How did I get here? And what's going on? And it's like, that's about the grass. That's important. I'm like, no, it's not. I know that you reach a certain age and reseeding grass becomes very important as a man, but it's like, it's not important to me or anybody else. These things that people complain about because they've been thrust out of their comfort zone into dealing with new people.
It's true.
And they're alarmed and they're doing all those primitive behaviours that we do when, as tribally, we're sort of used to having these people that we know and we can trust and we know the essence of them, and we're thrown in with new people all the time.
I mean, dancing, no, I'm not against dancing. I'm just pointing out how creativity is, when you share it, is less appreciated because it's just, but then again, dancing is part of art, and it's most culture, just about every culture that I've realized that we all have this dancing part, whether it's a soft dancing or twerking, whatever form of dancing, it's in us. We feel, it's beautiful when you see when I see a ballet guy, let's say,
I love that too.
Like
you're a good example.
Posture and stuff. Oh God!
If you're dancing on the beach at sunset, you're a good example of the human race. Even if you do nothing else in your whole life, because people have done that for tens of thousands of years on Bundjalung's beaches. They've danced and they've gone through emotions. What happens if I get attacked by the other tribe?
A lot of traditional dancings are storytelling.
Yeah.
There's the big thing, like the kangaroos, and this is in the Koori tradition, but in other cultures as well.
But also, and this is something else, and I don't have any neuroscientific evidence to support this, but I've got a background in cognitive neuroscience through psychiatric nursing, mental health nursing. So I know a little bit, and I know the various parts of the brain and what they do. And the cerebellum is like a ballistics computer for the brain. And if I talk to you now about getting underneath a ball so that you can catch it in its arc, as that ball is descending, there's a parabola, and it's like the rate of change with gravity is bringing it down. And your spinal cord, even as I'm talking about this, is going to be getting those muscles ready to move underneath that ball and catch it. And you're thinking with that part of your brain. And if you decide to bring your prefrontal cortex, I need to do some higher order reasoning here. Well, what if Bob gets it first, or blah, blah, blah? How is this going to make me look if I catch the ball? That gets in the way of you catching the ball. You need to catch that ball. So that part of your brain can't think about that stuff. And it can't think about the past or the future, because as soon as it catches that ball, if it's going to be ready to catch another ball, it has to throw the ball away. And while you're in dance or in movement, and you're still thinking your thoughts, which are bothering you, which is stressful, which are, maybe hot thoughts from trauma, you're just moving and you can't hold on to anything, and there is no past and future in that other than the immediate, thing. And then it's like, I'm starting to think, is this why trauma yoga works? Because I got complex PTSD, and that was one of the things I went through. It's like, for some reason, movement works. Eye movement, desensitization, reprogramming, that works. Because you're sensitive to fast movement, that's going to get you in flight or fight really quickly. So with combat veterans, and so moving intentionally and with some grace and with breath it just seems to just regulate me right down. And that's a big part of why I spend so much time playing bass, following a melody or some sort of pretty pattern in the world, dancing.
When did you start the piano?
There was always a piano in the house.
Oh, yeah.
My parents used to fight a lot. It was one of those old cottages, and I was in the front room of the house, and I would just repetitively play for hours. But I had lessons.
You had lessons?
Yeah, but I couldn't. I didn't know I had ADHD, and so I didn't practice what he told me to practice. I'd practice my own stuff, and then he would show up to teach me. And it would be really stressful because I wouldn't have done any work and I would have had to do it all in front of him. And it's like, and I kept persisting with it, even though it was really painful. I wasn't doing any work and he was really frustrated with me. And I didn't know why. And my sister's like, why don't you just practice? And I'm like, I can't make my brain show up. And I didn't even know until much later because my whole family sort of denied that there was anything wrong with them, even though my dad probably had ADHD. Now we know this, right? My mum probably had mild autism. She was a classics lecturer they're both really interesting people.
Yeah.
She was a classics lecturer and she was always talking to us in ancient Greek or Latin or Italian from the time that we were really young children. And she would talk to me about, Homer's Odyssey and the traditions of the epic poets and how they would convey things in a pre-literate society in a way that they could be remembered because of the rhythm of the way they was, like in Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus is always wily Odysseus, and Athena is always the goddess of the flashing eyes, and the sea is always the wine-dark sea, and these mnemonics are said the same way, and so that these poets can pass this stuff down. And then she became a Mills and Boon writer, and that was a family business. She wrote romance novels. And so at the tender old age of about 14, because she had a brachial neuropathy and couldn't type anymore, and my sister was 12, my mother was dictating these saucy romance novels onto tape, and she'd be like, Emma's breath came in short gasps. And I would turn around to Erin, who was like 12, and I'm like, are you getting this? This is like Mum's voice. Like, I'm going to have therapy for this. No, I didn't, but it was funny. It was pretty funny. It was an unconventional upbringing. But she didn't like loud noises, listened to classical music all the time, always sort of shutting things down if they, challenged her paradigm, the way she liked things done. And I've subsequently come to realise that she's autistic, mildly autistic, very intelligent, very gifted, but sort of didn't see that she wasn't like other people and wouldn't admit it if it was pointed out.
I mean, back then, you want to fit in as well. It's not like now.
It's like a disability. But yeah, no, it's like, no, there was no narrative of like, oh, it's a superpower. Yeah. But anyway, so like while we're all doing that, while we're all saying, no, I'm fine, I'm there not practicing piano and not getting any better at it, even though I'm quite musically talented, and like running up against all these other brick walls in my life. And then my dad's going, you're feckless, you'd never apply yourself. And I'm like, well, hang on, I'm pretty sure your dad said this to you because you're exactly the same way. And he, tried to slap it into you because he thought that was the best he could do. It's not, it's not right. Like, we live in this age now where we have access to all this information, we can see all these patterns, and we might be the most awake people of our whole lineage. And so, it behooves me and other people, if they choose to do something about that, to regulate well and to encourage particularly children to regulate well. Because if you've got well-regulated kids, if you've got kids with well-regulated nervous systems, I don't want to imply any sense of control there, but if you've got happy mums, you've got happy kids. Like I saw a woman in a car the other day, just laughing, just carefree. I was saying, oh, what a joy.
Yeah.
Because now I feel like, oh, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to go and get wood or, like whatever.
We are lucky to live in an era of time. We don't need to go and collect firewood, and you can put the dishes in a washing machine, that sort of stuff. If you want that sort of lifestyle, it can be cheap. But then at the same time, like we still, a lot of us are unhappy even with all that convenience. And so when you see this kind of scenery of moms being happy and just carefree, laughing in a car with the son, it's such a joyful thing.
That's your important work, though. Even though we don't have to go and get wood. If as a man I go and do something like that, and this is a very sort of traditional patriarchal kind of maybe way of looking at it, but if I go and do those things and I demonstrate, okay, look, I got you that because I want you to be relaxed, I want you to have this space, and I want you to be able to spend time with the kids, and I want you to be able to indulge in your creative pastimes and that sort of stuff. That calms me immediately down, because there's still, like, I'm all the aspects of a male. Like, I'm still a boy. I'm a teenager. I'm a child. I'm a man. I'm an elder. Yeah. I'm all of these things, and so is essentially the woman. Like there are times she's playful, and there's all these incarnations of and there's times when she's wise and she's stoic, and she's been through immense pain of childbirth and losing people, losing children, all of that is the human experience. And we all have mothers and we all have fathers, and we were all children. Yeah. And so that soothes people when everybody's looked after. That's what my grandma did. She liked to be entertained. She'd get me to do a concert at the drop of a hat, or sing, or it's like, oh, do something, and she'd laugh. She had this raucous laugh, but she'd always take care of you. She'd always make sure you were fed, and if there's anything wrong with you, she knew about it. And it makes me emotional to think about it. But like, that's why, harkening back to what I was saying about this idea of this great spirit being this female that reminded me of my grandmother. That's what it's like. So it's like this, all these aspects of incarnations of the woman as a child, laughing with delight, or a teenage girl, wanting to strut her stuff, or, a more self-assured and confident woman in her 20s and 30s, ranging all the way up to the mother, the grandmother, and, like somebody that I can have a laugh with because they've seen all the younger ones. They've seen so much of this happen before. That sense of like, oh, this is what it is. And, I'm old enough to see all these things now.
And understand how to put it in.
And again, like, harkening back to what you were saying about that suffering and that losing all those things being the best teacher I've ever had.
Yeah. Wow. So beautiful to have this conversation with you. I'm really glad. And your dad, you say he's American? He's originally from
America? I've got dual citizenship to America. So Dad was, like, as I said, my grandfather was a lineman who became a pilot, and my dad was 16, and my grandfather was kind of like physically abusive to my dad. Didn't really know how to be a parent, and was flying off all around the time. And then my grandmother would be like, oh, I'm having problems with Roger and Robert. Roger's my dad. Roger and John. And then John, so then my grandfather just gave them both a hiding, like really belted them. So he's really woke him up from a sleep and threw him against the wall. So he's really traumatized by his dad, but still loved him. And then the grandfather, Robert, he was riding a motorcycle, drove up next to a burning car when my dad was 16, and caught fire and got full thickness burns, so like 70% of his body, and died, and still didn't tell my dad. He loved him. And my grandmama was from South Carolina. And so when Granddaddy Robert died, Granddaddy Bob, we call him, then my grandmama went back to the South with the two younger kids. But my dad, who was 16, wanted to stay in California because all his friends were there. So he was couch surfing, and he was living in this house that was, like on the market. And it was about the time of the Vietnam War. And like he talked to this guidance counsellor who gave him the standard advice: a kid like you needs to belong to something. And so he thought he was going to get drafted anyway.
Yeah.
So he volunteered as an airman and went into the US Air Force. And it was an interesting story. He was really bright and qualified to, fix satellites as an electrician or something.
Yeah.
But didn't want to do it, so he put the two wires together that weren't supposed to go together and threw himself across the room. And then he had to fill out all these psych things. It's like, oh, do you love your mom? Yeah. Do you hate your dad? No. Do you get afraid during electrical storms? Oh, yeah, really afraid during electrical storms. So they sent him to supply. Came back from Vietnam, and he'd seen all these officers, and there's a war zone over there, and all this crazy stuff's going on. Seen all these officers, and it's like, they're not any brighter than me. They went to college, I can go to college. Went to college and studied invertebrate zoology and studied aquaculture, which at the time, in the 70s, was seen as maybe the solution for world hunger. Like, that was where the world was at then. And one of those big families in the United States, like the Rockefellers, not the Rockefellers, but one of them, brought him out here to oversee a fish farm in South Australia. But it was shrimp, and they'd chosen these very pugilistic shrimp. So they all killed and ate each other. They were very combative, these shrimp. They all killed and ate each other, and the company folded, and he was out of a job. So he moved down to Tasmania and worked in fisheries, and met my mum at a party.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your mom's the one originally from here?
Yeah, she's from Tasmania, of like Irish convict stock. And all of the women in that family, well, certainly of that generation, married men from other countries.
Did you go back and forth to the US when you were younger?
Not like Mum was very, as I said, she's very set in her ways and didn't want to have any adventures. She was happy just, to basically live in Sandy Bay, go as far south as Kingston and maybe as far east as the airport, and that was pretty much it. Didn't want to really leave there, not very often anyway.
Very comfortably home.
That was her life, yeah.
Yeah.
That was her place. But, Dad, of course, wanted to. And we did. I remember one memorable trip was in 1990, and we spent maybe 4 months out in South Carolina. And then at that age, because I would have been about 13, and we were such a novelty to the South Carolina kids, really? They were getting us to say words. But we quickly worked out, my sister and I, that they didn't understand it. If we said, could I have a glass of water, please? If we used our own accents, they just weren't prepared to hear water said that way. So we're like, yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. That's right. I sure am. Oh, my granddaddy Bob's lived here for ages. Yeah, my grandmama. Well, she lives up in Lane, and, well, hello there. You look mighty pretty.
Wow.
Like, in fact, like when I went to bury Dad, my cousin Bill came up, and he was like Bill the vampire out of True Blood, the way he spoke. Well, why, hello there. My name's Bill.
Oh, wow.
What's your name? Like with, what's your name?
Wow.
It was like this Southern gentleman thing. And it was like,
amazing.
You're in that vibe. It's just like, oh, that's what we do here. Same thing, drop. It's like, oh, that's how we talk. Well, hey, y'all, how y'all doing?
So you easily adapt.
Yeah, I've always been like that.
That's beautiful.
Like I lived in Belgium, and I learned, I was on exchange when I was about 19 for about a year.
Oh, yes.
But now I speak to French people, and they're like...
You speak French?
Yeah, and they're like, oh, you speak really good French.
Oh, that's amazing.
You must have been practicing. I'm like, no, I haven't practiced at all. Like, I have a lot of trouble, actually. When I was there, yeah. I could think in the other language, and that was like seamless, and then I could start talking English. But amazing. Now I have to, I have to decide what I'm going to say, because there's, the vocabulary isn't as easy to me as it once was. But I remember the point where I thought, oh, I've got this now, because I came downstairs to my host family and I said, "J'ai rêvé en français." And they were like, which means I dreamed in French. And they said, "Oh, wow, what did you dream?" And I said, "I don't know. I didn't understand."
Yeah, because they say when you dream in that language, it means you not master it, but you can get by now. You can speak reasonably well.
Because again, like when we were talking about with music, I was like, well, we're not forcing it through this this sort of like high value processing of our frontal lobe. Like we can instinctively catch a ball. We don't have to talk to ourselves about catching the ball. If we do, we get in the way. We can instinctively speak in our native tongue. And, you know, when you get to the point where you master another language and you can instinctively do it, it's like, I want to say that, and that's over there, and now I'm saying it.
So how many languages do you speak now?
Just 2, but I live with all these Latinos and I do acro yoga, and there is really no reason not to learn Spanish.
Yeah. I mean, it's a related language to French.
The Roman language. I mean, they're always talking in Spanish, so I start understanding what they're saying.
That's good, yeah. And I mean, soon you'll understand Italian.
You know, they're saying, "Oh, trabajo." Oh, my mother.
Yeah, different pronunciation, yeah.
My mother, as I said, spoke to me in Italian when I was young, and I've forgotten all of it. But my sister speaks Italian as well, and French, and Spanish. They're all really good linguists.
Wow.
So they speak in Italian, and I think Italian would be easier for me, also because I sang opera repertoire in Italian. But Mum would be like, you know, I'll say this, "Come stai? Ciao, come stai? Hai detto bene, Kirk." You know.
With the accent, proper accent. But she's Italian.
My mother? No.
She has no, she was Irish.
Irish convict, but she
went... She spoke Italian?
Because
of the neighborhood?
Studying classics and...
Oh, yes, of course.
Got some sort of scholarship or gap year or something and went off and lived in Tuscany, Umbria for a year and had a boyfriend and was considering marrying him. And it was this sort of... That was her one great adventure of her life. And then she went, "Oh, no, Italians are much too disorganised for me, and I couldn't deal with the bureaucracy and, you know, all that sort of stuff. And because it's just so broken, I'm going to come back to Tasmania and I'm going to live in this small place where I know where everything is. And it's like, I'm going to live this sort of quaint village life."
Well, Tuscany is a really beautiful region. Beautiful.
Yeah. And then my sister went, and somehow my mother had got back in contact with this ex-boyfriend when Erin was in Europe, and, you know, like a lot of things have changed obviously since then. Like, and she was married, she had 4 children, etc. And wasn't intending to go there herself. But then my sister went and stayed with this ex-boyfriend of hers, and he was rich and showed her, like, took her to the Lamborghini, you know, like racing place and all these other amazing places. She had this amazing adventure following on in my mum's footsteps. So she learned Italian as well.
You go traveling around Europe?
I did. I went... So when I lived in Belgium, it's like no distance to anywhere. Yeah. And, you know, even then, I suppose... You know, like I didn't drink all the time, but I realised that I could potentially have a problem with drinking because Belgium brews beer and it's very famous for it. And there's a cafe in Liège. Was it Liège or Brussels? Anyway, it had 900 different types of beer and 35 on tap. And I went in one day and like boldly decided to try them all. And I fell asleep on the train and woke up in Germany. And this guy was like, "Habst du ein Ticket?" So I travelled, you know, unintentionally to Germany on that occasion. But then I went to visit my sister, who was staying in Foggia, which is near the Boot. It's in the south of Italy, with her host family first before she went with Mauricio. And I went via some family friends in Alsace, Lorraine, Strasbourg. I had a friend that was an interpreter there, and he lived there with his wife. And they hosted me for a little while, and then I went down to Avignon, down in the south, and spent some time with the family down there. Then kept travelling down through into Italy, stopped at Milan for a little bit and then went down to Foggia and spent some time
What's
in
the
the
best
system.
memory you have of Europe? I mean, you were young too, yeah?
I liked Les Ardennes, like there are mountains around the edges of Belgium that kind of like they front onto... and the other thing I really liked was going and visiting Roman ruins in Avignon, because obviously... I didn't have that appreciation for ancient civilizations then that my mother always had, but now I do. And like the idea of even here, walking on land that we're, people have walked here for tens of thousands of years before, but there's so much more visible evidence of that.
Exactly. That it's quite grand, really, to be finding yourself in that space of once was pristine, thrive civilization is so grand, so you feel like I mean for me I'm just a speck of drifting dust in this grand universe, really.
But it's a memory that's important because you're there to witness it. It's like the tree falling in the forest. The thing is, like, you see the vestiges of this once grand Colosseum, whatever it is.
Yeah.
These ruins that were, somebody thought about this. They worked really hard on it. They've been thousands of man-hours into this, and it was a big thing, and it was a big thing for everybody that was around it, and culturally it was huge, and now it doesn't exist, and it doesn't serve any purpose.
We
and
go
it's
there
like...
just for the photos, but what I like is going and sitting there, and then you have a feeling of the place.
That's exactly it.
No matter how, maybe sometimes it's just like 5 minutes quietness, and whether you're watching the people, but actually you feel more grounded if you just sit and not having to walk for the photos. You can give 5 minutes in a spot and look at, find the best spot and view, like looking over a hill, viewing the whole city, that kind of stuff. I like going to the ancient castles,
ruins and me too. I love
because
that.
there's still old towns as well with these old ruins, and there's history to it. And how we all appreciate our identity because in terms of culture related to the language and what the history was then, and that shaped us to be where we are, and we evolved. And with your trip in Europe, how long did you go for?
Touring around, not all that long. Like, I did a lot of trips within Belgium, but like mainly I was there to have an experience of that culture, which I got. There were dialects and people living down the road that speak, like 30 kilometres away, that spoke a different dialect.
You speak Flemish at all?
No,
that kind of Dutch mixed with Dutch.
I never really learnt it. I sort of vibed it a little bit, but never really had to communicate in it. I was never forced to. And the Flemish speakers tend to be better English speakers than the French. The French just speak French.
Yeah.
But the Flemish speakers can speak English, French, and Flemish. And so, I never really had to learn that, but a little bit. So the experience was like, these people live like this village lifestyle where it's all built around the square of their village, and they have all these customs that have been handed down for ages, and they treat them with some sort of reverence. And there's like, some of them don't really make sense, but they're kind of beautiful. That sort of way of living where, like what you were talking about before with, I think what you're leading on to with the influencers and, they're just doing all these, it comes from American culture. It comes from capitalism of like, we're actually all individuals and we don't live as a community. But in those kind of places, it's like, well, you can tell us that like this is a quicker route, via Google Maps to get from here to here. But, actually from Louvigné to Sprimont, everybody knows you take this path and blah, 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 and you follow these cobbled stones. And nobody's going to listen to Google Maps because they're not going to follow something that goes against the traditions and customs. And there's a stronger sense of that in those places where that's been handed on and carefully preserved and they're custodians of those traditions than there is in a younger country like Australia, which has had a lot of multiculturalism and a lot of other people, and that's part of its beauty, but there isn't any integrated sense of like, this has been happening for hundreds of years and this is how we do it.
Yeah. What's the best city in Australia that you think?
Best city in Australia? I'm not really a city mouse, to be honest, but I've enjoyed Sydney, I've enjoyed Melbourne, I've enjoyed Brisbane for different reasons. I don't think I've spent any time in Perth.
Out of these, which is the one that's more like multiculturally more related to you?
In Canberra as well. The one that, like, because I knew people in Melbourne, and I knew some of those bohemian subgroups and the music scene, and and at that time before the property boom had really kicked off, my cousin was living up there, and he was still a pretty cool dude back then, and he would be doing video animation before it was a thing, He was really good at that. He was working for Spicks and Spacks, and he knew all these other really artistic people, and they'd ride bikes around everywhere, and everybody was doing something funky, and they were all wearing, and it was relatively in a city, but then it just forced them out from Brunswick, out to Northcote, Thornbury, further north. He didn't want to go south of the river because he considered it too yuppie territory. I spent a fair bit of time there. Whereas, like, the experiences I've had in Sydney, I just didn't know as many people and couldn't integrate with the community as much.
Oh, yeah.
And Brisbane, I've really just visited Brisbane as a tow truck driver recently. Like, industry has been the thing, because recently I've been driving tow trucks, and I was driving wrecks up to these big auctions like Pickles and Mannheim and stuff, and it was just like any musician, I spend way more time doing things that have nothing to do with music than I do music, trying to earn a living. So and I haven't explored that as much as I would like to, and it's changed a lot. Like when I was young, my parents bought a place in Noosaville, and it was one of those body corporate units, and they bought it as sort of like an investment, but it ended up not being a very good investment because of all the fees. But we used to go up there for holidays, so we used to fly into Brisbane or Maroochydore, but often it was Brisbane, and then you drive a car up.
Yeah. What was it like travelling with your family then when you go around Australia?
Oh, God. Like, I'm glad it was just those short distances. They were just at each other's throats, my parents. Because my dad had this hypervigilance, exaggerated startle response, and he could go from, 0 to Mach 10 in a flash, because he was traumatized, from Vietnam, from his father. So I would his way of chilling out would be to work in the garden and just let his feelings wash off. And I was like about a 10-year-old kid, and I walked up behind him one time, and he had a pitchfork, and he turned around really quickly with a pitchfork, like as though he was going to stab me with it. He said, "Jesus, don't sneak up on people like that." I'm like, Jesus, you just terrified me, and I still carried those kind of things, that hypervigilance that comes from his thing. And she didn't understand any of that, because she was oh no, keep your voice low, don't offend anybody, be meek and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, "No, I'm not meek." And when she argued, because she was I hadn't seen her for years, but she's a very intelligent woman, but she's like a lot of academics, was very attached to that idea of intelligence, that my intellect is me. And that's really important, so that I have to be right.
Status as well, back
right?
then, yeah?
But yeah, it's really important to be able to go, I'm wrong, immediately. I'm wrong, because otherwise I'm spending all this time defending this position that I actually don't care about. It's demonstrably wrong. And I'm spending all my time and attention defending that so that I can defend this ego, which also isn't real. And it would be much easier for me just to go, hey, you know what, I'm wrong. And that's the kind of person I am now.
Yeah, it's like I think this is why they say, don't argue with someone who's going to drag you down.
Yeah. Or somebody that is so determined to kind of win the argument that they'll bring up everything, and they'll they'll legalistically approach an argument.
There is a side of human nature to somehow that side can you can find yourself commit to misunderstanding other people or somebody, and that doesn't, unfortunately, doesn't help progress. Any of us really, it drags us down, or you stay at the bottom. But you think your dad didn't get therapy back then? Like they don't have some kind of therapy available?
No, he went and talked to people at various different points because he had slapped me at school and my glasses had gone into my face and they cut my eye. Oh. And he hit me a few times, and it was part of it. And then the guidance counsellor was like, "What happened to you?" And I was just like, didn't realise I needed to lie for my dad. I said, "Oh, my dad hit me." It's like, does this happen a lot? Oh yeah, every now and then. Like he'll hit me, like if I do something wrong. Oh. And I'd knocked a painting off the wall or something, and again, that was really hard. I'm not defending what he did, right? But I'm saying that it's a result of a generational transmission that happened in 1950s America from a father who was much more highly strung. There was a lot more danger in that thing. He's military trained, and now he's back in civilization in sleepy Tasmania. And he's doing these things that probably over there other veterans would have said, "Hey, look, you got to pull your head in, buddy."
Yeah, I remember befriended a neighbor in Australia, and he decided to go to the army. He told me he was going to the army. He came back after 4 years. You know what he said to me? He was a changed person. He couldn't interact like the way he was interacting, was warmer kind of person. And he said to me, that's one thing that he learned. I didn't ask. He just said, one thing I learned is that I have been trained to not be a civilian, and I can't undo it.
Yeah, see, that happened to me. And people have hard time believing this because I was a nurse, and they think, oh, well, nurses, they work amongst us and stuff. But it's like, no, actually, I've seen extremes of living and dying and human behaviour and violence and stuff that you'll never see. And I was seeing it longer than just on a 4-year tour, because I would go to work in a prison with all these guys who were all ex-military, that were the custodial officers, and what they liked to do was maintain the boundaries, enforce them, patrol them, and control and secure. And it makes everybody else uncomfortable when a military force occupies a position. But it doesn't make them uncomfortable because they're used to it. And they rely on the fact that it dysregulates the populace and that fear and that destabilisation to assert more control. But they were doing that, and you would have these men who had grown up with nothing, who had been wronged all the way through their life, and some of them were just really bad people. Some of them had no education. Some of them were smart, just opportunistic, and would just, steal their grandmother's false teeth. Some of them were like that, and they had nothing to do and all the time in the world, and all they were doing was walking around probing for weaknesses in the custodial office. Yeah. So this is all men, and men upregulate each other. They upregulate each other by talking about violence and oh yeah, I want to smash them, you come near me. And just all this sort of thing that just gradually just raises the temperature, so you're in sympathetic nervous system response, flight or fight, or on the verge of it. You're in a hypervigilant state. And when you're like that, you're not making measured decisions. You're not engaging your critical thinking, going, hey, let's look at this clearly. Yeah. That's not what that guy wants at all. Yeah. You are looking at this in a quickly, easily determinable way because that's what you're used to. That's not what's happening here. Yeah. We need to look at this picture clinically because there are outliers here that it's presenting to me that this is a different case and this guy's going to die and we're going to be liable. So let me into that cell.
What do you think about, this is so interesting you mentioned, because I thought things like this still continues to a degree because maybe we are not trained, like if this kind of, you know, analytical thinking, like you know, you've just explained, is put through really early childhood education, so that we become aware on how to, you know, to manage our response and reactions. That could really train. I mean, it may take a few generations to really like get there, but would you change?
This is why what I do now, like I have been through these rehabs and stuff, and I work with men and go, look, you know, there'll be a whole bunch of automatic responses, like, oh, you know, I could give that guy hiding, I could do this, you know, I could yell at him, I could, and it's like, well, pick the best ones. Like, those aren't going to serve future you. They're not going to keep the rest of the thing calm, and you're not even going to get the outcome you want. You know, like all you're doing is thumping your chest, and it might feel nice for a second, but then you've got more problems to deal with. So pick the best one that you can do, and do it, like, maintain your boundaries and maintain respect for the other person, but say, no, look, I won't tolerate that. We're going to need to find another medium. And it's like, and if you keep pushing me, I'll keep pushing back. That's where we're at. And if you, so you do that as a man, and then like, well, like one of the things I've had to learn for myself is that I have to consistently set small boundaries rather than getting to the point where it is one of those big things where it's like, hey, you know, it's like, no, we talked about this, don't. And same with women, so that they have the space to feel safe, because I realise how important that is, because they are so at risk from, and women tell me, feminists tell me, that, oh, you can't imagine what it's like to walk through your life in fear of other men.
It's true.
But the thing is that they don't realise is that most men are in fear of other men as well. Most men are walking around in fear of other men. It's rare to find a man that's not in fear of other men.
So interesting, because you know how I have a lot of male friends, and that's why like I make sure that when we come to jam music, we are all like, you know, they're communicating. Music communicates, right? Even if it's just through the sound, through the instrument, you're communicating with each other, and that's why I like. What I notice, we always have dinner together. I mean, and that allows the relaxation, get to know each other.
Yeah, because you feel safe, because we're co-regulating, because we're eating together, we're breaking bread.
And this is so important also, but I'm able to do that because of a cultural foundation that I had. You know, having that helps me a lot how to channel my connections with my friends, my male friends. And one of the things that I notice in a Western society, because I come from a very traditional society, is that the competition amongst people, amongst male.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a really big deal, because for me, who don't come from a Western culture, it's super obvious. I see it like it's as clear as anything. Where the men behave as it's always like in a game playing,
right.
where and I think it stems from maybe envy or jealousy, and it's
territory.
Like if I have the girl, it's not so much about just embracing the love that he has. Feel with this girl, the beautiful love that they have, that they connect through it, and not for showing off to other men. Because what I see is like, I'm like, whoever have the house, have the car, have the girl, have the family, it's like not to show off to another woman, but to show off to the guy, I'm the winner, buddy.
Right.
That kind of. I see that, and maybe it's just me who absolutely misunderstood.
No,
but I see that.
I don't think you misunderstood at all.
And I feel like that is a great gain for the ego, but it's a big loss for love.
Yeah,
because
it's a loss for love.
It's the moment you don't have this gain for the ego. You're really just
Well, see,
family.
everything
You're
becomes
just
a commodity
family guy
then.
who's just so appreciative. Oh, you're just a lover who knows how to be absorbed into the,
Yeah.
so absorbent into the love story.
So when I
the
saw that
emotions.
woman laughing the other day in her car, and I thought, oh, she's probably talking to her husband or her family or something. But anyway, it was just such a delightful thing. You know, like for a long time I was thinking, you know, what do I have to do to make that happen?
Oh.
You know, like to make sure that her happiness is protected and the kids' happiness is protected and stuff. And then, like, I just had that epiphany then when I thought about it. It's like, well, maybe you need to let go of all of that you've just said, that whole, you know, I need to be the provider and the protector and stuff, and just feel joy myself, because just like their joy is contagious, mine is as well. And by me being relaxed, they feel safer.
You know, I feel, for me, I can't speak on behalf of other girls or females. Is that I don't care if you're with a mansion or a yacht or if you live in a car.
Yeah.
It's more that the attention and the love, the warmth that I get from you as a man, that is going to make me want to be with you. I want to choose you, because I know for me, like I don't want to be an option in your life where I'm a choice for you.
See,
like for me, like I'm raised to understand that I choose, and that comes from an understanding of the person who's going to give me attention, to give me love, to make me feel accepted, just not necessarily to be just the way I am, because you know you always evolve. The way you are now in future is going to be different, because circumstances change, situations change, and you evolve, adjust along, and you get better or whatever. So that's the thing that I feel almost like, if I could put it in the simplest way, is like, I don't mind if you're poor. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't mind if that you're poor. I don't mind you loving me while you're being poor, because money, we can do it. We can build it, whatever. These things we can
That's
do
how you
together.
show up.
Yeah, but it's just
your time and attention.
Can you be there when I'm really having a stuffed up day?
Yeah.
You know, can you be there when I'm having a crisis? Can you still be my love? Can you still be my best friend? So
when I was in this sort of interim, these years between having that relationship breakup, going through that whole thing, I stayed single on purpose for a long time, because particularly in the context of alcohol and drugs, it had made me kind of like everything was just hedonism, and I had become sort of sleazy in the pursuit of, you know, romance, because it was just to give me an escape from my life. And I wasn't showing up for any aspect of my life. That's why I was drinking. That's why I was avoiding the world. And so I consciously didn't have any relationship for a long time. And I had friendships, though, because it was like, it's life or death surviving addiction. And I made really close friendships with a lot of women that were going through the same journey that I was. And I would help them, and I would advise. And often I'd find them services when they were in a different state, and they're like, help me, I don't know what to do. And be like, oh, well, do this. Like, and I would like not be judgmental, and I would find solutions. But also, then I was living with this woman in northwestern Tasmania, and I'd known her from the gym community before, and it was a platonic relationship. She gave me accommodation, and we were friends. And, you know, like her car broke down one time, and I'm like, that's all right, I'll come and get you. And I knew that I would show up for her.
Yeah.
But bugger me, she showed up for me one time when it happened to me. And I was like, you know, I didn't think I could trust anybody. And like, so I realized how important that was, and not to, you know, for that period of time anyway, I didn't want to cloud any of that with sex, because I didn't, you know, I knew that as soon as I introduced sex, there would be an unwritten contract written in oxytocin and all these other, you know, neurochemicals that we have when we're intimate with other people that makes us feel like we're safe, even though we probably shouldn't be safe, you know, with this person, because we haven't sufficiently seen how they act under duress, and we haven't been through those battles together. And yeah, so anyway, like I didn't sleep with her, And that, but I had a lot of friendships like that.
Yeah.
Like I was attracted to the person, but I was like...
But that's the thing, that you can be attracted to somebody and you don't necessarily need to take it onto a sexual level.
Yeah.
And sometimes I see someone like, oh man, their presence, there's the beautiful looking face, there's the talent, but there's the present. Their present, you just become so in love with the way that they are, okay? But at the back of my mind, I don't know what they actually are when they're stripped naked. I'm not saying physically.
Yeah, no, I know.
You can
it's like,
strip naked,
you
but
don't
like
know the essence of it.
Yeah, the essence of you when you're mentally, like under stress, whatever. I don't know that side, right? And so, and then that's where I become so aware. Can I be his friend? Can I be her friend at that point in life, if that ever were to come? Because I decided to be their friend. So if I'm going to be their friend, I question myself as well. Can I be a friend when they're in bad times? Of course I can. So, like friendship is always a decision. Whatever we do, people we connect, we decide.
Decision by moment, decision by decision.
Moment by moment. And I think it sounds like a discrimination to make a decision and stuff, to choose, but we do have to do that.
You've only got so much time, attention and resources. And if you are prioritizing one relationship, then you're not prioritizing another. And like you could be helping. This is why, I had to come to the realization that it's not a good idea for me to help random homeless people or randomly addicted people who don't want to then grow and help other people, because I could be helping somebody evolve and empower them.
The first things you need to realize is, like, yes, we all need help at some point or for something, but they need to be ready to want to be helped, because sometimes we are the one who push the help, and they say, I'm not ready. Like they don't say it, but their actions shows you, I'm not ready for that. That's
true, but also, like, I'm not placing any judgment or caveats on what they're doing. It's more about how they show up consistently. It's like, well, if you mean business, then get here and do this with me. And if you don't, this one guy, I probably gave him about 10, 12 hours of driving lessons in total. And it's like he just never showed any signs of actually... It was just me giving him driving lessons. He was driving my car. He wanted to hang out. And I'm like, this is kind of parasitic. I'm giving everything in this relationship.
Yeah.
And you are taking from me and you're making it seem like it's a good deal for me. And it's like I'm withdrawing my time and attention and resources from this friendship, because I know that there are better ways to spend that. But like with those, like exploring those male-female relationships platonically, like so much of this journey of having, my own concept, and I've done a lot of meditation as well, but my own concept of self stripped away. First of all, my self-esteem battered down by this institutional thing in this prison culture, and it's like you're an addict, like you're not worth anything. We don't want you. Your family doesn't want me. Like even my own children for a period of time weren't talking to me. My daughter still doesn't, but my son does. So that's all happened, and it's like, okay, I'm still alive, and I don't have access to those people. And if I want to stay sober and live a good life, then I have to go forward with it. Good intention and not carry anything. Is this right? Is this okay? Like, am I being too forward in my interaction with this woman? And like at first it was really sort of like humbling, because I thought I was doing everything wrong and I couldn't rely on my intuition, because I knew that all the decisions and all the patterns of behavior and the ideas of self that I had prior to that were wrong, because they kept leading me back to this, like I'm a smart guy, but like then why the hell was I in rehab with all these people that had done 10 years in jail for armed robbery? They're like, oh, you're obviously really intelligent, you must be playing mind games. I'm like, dude, I can't even balance my, bank account. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. Like if I was making smart decisions, if I was able to apply my intelligence, I wouldn't be here. I'm not. Something is gravely wrong. I don't know what it is until I strip everything away. And then piece by piece, like, is this right? You know, like that principle of wise speech in Buddhism, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Then the next action, if I do that, if I show up, it's like, how much information have you got about this situation, Kirk? This. Can you find out more? All right. How long have you got to find out more? Okay, it's time to make a decision. What's the best decision you can make with the information that you've got? Have you done your best? Are you sure? Yeah. And then, from decision to decision, people say, oh, why did you do that? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, what? I don't really have a very strong sense of self anymore. I don't believe what my mind tells me because it was lying to me. So I made a series of the best decisions, and I can justify them to you if you want. And that's why I've become the person I have today, because I've made all those decisions. And you can. You can't think your way into right living, but you can live your way into right thinking. You can pull yourself along to a position where people are suddenly, they're looking at you with respect because you made each decision with a principle that wasn't about your self-gain.
But I think people only reflect respect to you because you are showing self-respect. You know, you make all these steps out of self-respect for yourself, you know, for your way of being, and that evolution shows through as you're interacting with people. And so people don't have a choice but to respect you. Well, who's going to disrespect you if you come with good intentions? And it shows.
But the thing is, like, hindsight's always 20/20. So I can look from the position that I'm in now and go, I've become this person. But I had no idea I was going to become that person when I was a homeless addict. You know, that had everything stripped away from me.
Yeah.
I had no idea that that was the path. I took it on faith, decision by decision, until I ended up in a position where I'm like, oh, wow. And I guess now I try to tell people, you know, if you just pick up that rubbish there, if you feel bad about yourself and you're thinking about your ex-girlfriend, how she chose some other guy and blah, 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 why don't you pick up that rubbish? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going through this thing. No, pick it up. Because you are taking care of the planet and you're taking care of the people around you, and people see that. And you will esteem yourself more as you pick it up. And you throw the rubbish away, and you keep making decisions like that, buddy, every single day. And you will become an esteemable person. And suddenly you won't be attracting the kind of people that do leave you, that are disloyal to you. Because you're loyal to yourself, and you don't need other people's validation to feel good about yourself, because you just picked up that trash.
You know who you are.
And you picked it up yesterday as well, and you keep doing it, and you're a consistent and magical person because you do things consistently.
Yeah, that's and you know, like, with knowing who you are, who you actually are, doesn't matter what people's opinion is. Yeah.
Right.
Because that's the foundation. Over little things, you make sure, not necessarily you do the right thing, but consciously, you know, like that. Who's the one of my favorite author? I forgot his name, but he wrote this amazing poem called "Success." He said, success. One of the things he said in the poetry is leaving the world a little bit better. You know, and also it's a very profound poem. I forgot now. If you Google it, will come up. But it's like a Bible to me. This poem, and it's the little actions like that makes a huge difference. That determines how we want to be. With our presence now, because future is unknown.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, what options do I have here, and what are the most consistent with the kind of person that I actually want to be? And I don't know how that's going to unfold, because however much I might predict things, however clever my estimation might be, it'll always be slightly off. The weather might be bad that day.
Do you think you estimate, or do you manifest?
Well, I think, what are these decisions that I have in front of me, and then as a result of, because there's never any shortage of ideas, because I've got ADHD and like I'm very creative, and so I was like, oh, you did this, and this. There are too many ideas, and it's like I could be exhausted by them. So I pick one and I go, I have to jettison the rest because I can't carry them. And they'll exhaust me if I pursue them all, and they'll interfere with each other. Yeah. So I do that one, and that's a really good idea. And then in some way, like certainly doing the video log stuff and talking about, you know, what my next move was, then that starts this kind of like these juices flowing, and I feel like I'm talking to Bunjalung a lot of the time, and things have just appeared in my head, like romance the world was one of the things. And it's like, you know, like it's important that you take care of yourself and not for other people, Kirk. These kind of things that come to me when I'm still and quiet. And like one of them was I walked up to the tea tree, like the one that you can access as a man with a friend. You know, and I'd spend a little bit of time there. And it's like, you know, you need to take better care of yourself. You know, like make sure you've eaten, have you slept enough, all that stuff, and take care of everybody else. And now I talk to people that are going through complex trauma that have given up alcohol and are sober, or, you know, whatever. And suddenly they realise, oh, I've got a raw dog, all this trauma now that I've had for 20 years and I've been masking with these substances. It's like, yeah, that's the way it works, but it's all right. You just get through it. You feel the feelings and you go down to the core of it and you find out what it means. But also, like, if you're ruminating, you can't let go of those thoughts. When was the last time I ate? Am I eating all right? Have I been drinking enough water? Am I getting enough social interaction, enough sunshine? Am I sleeping okay? And this one, when was the last time I got paid? Because I was noticing when I lived in these boarding houses that, you know, that the dole or the disability pension or whatever these guys were on comes out fortnightly. And in that off week, they're like, oh, fuck, everything's gone. You know, I'm having a terrible time. And I'm like, dude, it's off pay week. You've got no money. And you're at the poverty line, so you don't have any reserves. So, of course, you're unhappy because you don't have abundance. And that's all it is. And it, like, if my nervous system can get fooled like by that because I felt it, then everybody else's can as well. And then, so there are these pervasive patterns of behaviour of people having dysregulated days because they get paid fortnightly and they don't have enough money in their bank account and they're irresponsible with money, or they haven't drunk enough water, or blah blah blah. And you know, wars break out over this stuff because people don't see it. They don't see when all the parks on Johnson Street in Byron Bay are all 45-degree parks. And this happens several times a day. People try to pull their cars out, and then the people behind them honk their horns like, you fucking idiot. It's like, no, that happens about 8 times a day, and it's because they're on a 45-degree angle. And you think it's about you and me. It's not. It's about the flow of the traffic that goes through here and all the people that go through here and how we all co-regulate together. And if you can see that, then you're beyond your own personal concern of like, you inconvenience me and therefore I'm going to make your life a misery. It's like, well, okay, care for yourself, you know, because that's your responsibility. Nobody else can do it.
Yeah, that's true.
And then manage your nervous system. And you're going to have to do that for the rest of your life as well, because even if you go to a psychiatrist or a faith healer or whatever you subscribe to, it's like going to a piano teacher. They're not going to play the piano for you. You have to play it.
It's like the same thing, like a mother giving birth.
Right.
Nobody's going to give birth.
You're on your own now, buddy. Yeah. Like, you're the one that's in the driver's seat of this nervous system for the rest of your life.
And that's where you find yourself... you find yourself building a great relationship with yourself because you have to be in that solo journey of looking after yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And you can let's say you can get sick, right? And then you go to the doctor, here, oh, give me the medicine. Here's the money. Yeah, the doctor can do that. But if you're not thinking about what you eat might be affecting your gout or whatever. This thing, you're not going to hold anybody else responsible other than yourself.
Yeah.
So it's an absolute solo journey. And I think, I don't know if you agree, but I think art directs you
It does.
into really good mental state, because once you're mentally finding balance, then you realize the physical, like the physical way you start to look after yourself even more. Because I mean, mentally you have to be healthy because you're physically healthy first. But once you're mentally quite in a good balance point, you just realize a lot more how you can take care of
Yeah, you
yourself
see
even
more.
better.
You have more epiphanies and you see things.
And the contribution to someone else's life as well. And when you're in a good mental state, you go play the bass in the street. Then I saw you and like, oh, this is great.
I do that every day, even if I'm dysregulated. I try to do that. I try to find time.
Yeah.
Because I know that it will ground me. But
yeah,
one of the
because
things
you make the time.
Yeah,
That's the
I
thing.
do.
No matter what, you make the time.
And one of the things that I notice about, like myself with those habits is like, I'm actually a good cook, even in rehab terms where it's a lot of chefs are alcoholics or addicts, in that industry. It's like late nights, there's a lot of drug abuse. And they're like, no, you're a good cook. Like, that was the best meal I've eaten since I've got there. But I don't cook for myself while I'm flying solo. I buy vegetables as a single man and I put them in the bottom of the fridge and they just rot. So I try to drink like V8 juices and stuff, but I don't do it often enough because I forget because I'm playing the bass.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm not doing that. And I'm like, well, I need to take better care of myself, if I'm going to like practice what I preach. So this local guy at Three Ways, he likes to cook. This brother likes to cook. And he gives me a good feed for $15. I need to put money into the local economy because that's how we survive, especially, when diesel prices are going up. And I'm like, okay, bro, $15, feed me up big. And he does. And it's like, it's good for him. It's good for me. It helps his business. Helps me. I feel nourished. I feel a sense of brotherhood and companionship.
Yeah. So,
because I don't want to have to do the cooking and the meal prepping anymore. I don't want to think about that. I want to think about how I can cultivate creativity and talent in younger people. And I want to think about, writing and art and spirituality and stuff. And I want to give that my focus. And I don't want to think, all right, well, I have to do all of these other things. Yeah. It's not efficient if you spread the tasks amongst the whole human population. It's not efficient for me to be doing neurosurgery 0.005% of the time. Like we're not that generalist. There is a reason why we get specifically very good at things that require that sort of focus. And it's like, although some of those things, like I was saying with the chop wood, carry water thing, they are the way that you show up for yourself. Like that's important work. Because if I show up as a man and I was like, I'll just hold you some firewood, honey, it's like, even though we've got a heat pump and we didn't, we got an air conditioner and it's like we're in the subtropical, it's like, it's a gesture. Yeah. It's an offering.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've demonstrated my use and I've demonstrated that I'm part of a community. So there's more to it than the actual commodity.
Yes.
And also, you were talking about the competition before, and then how you notice how men compete with other men. And they compete with men for tallies. Oh, I've got this much money. Oh, my car goes this fast. Oh, I should see the engine on this one. Just picked up the Sheila. Everybody just becomes, everything just becomes a commodity in that competitive state. And then it's like, you're not appreciating any of these things because you're so busy trying to acquire more.
Yeah.
You're never actually present with the things that are around you, that have stuck around you, even though you're such a disagreeable fellow. Why don't you be with your wife instead of having a mistress and see what's really bothering her
but
about
we're
you?
also like in a very wasteful society. We can buy something and it's still functional just because there's a newer version of it. We say, oh, I'm just going to try the new, like a mobile phones, let's say, yeah? It's easy to just dispose or give away. And so then there's like all about quantity.
It's built that way too, so that we buy more stuff and there's always more cha-ching, 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 and that's what capitalism is driven to do, is just have more transactions and more money, because it's like, oh, that's what we have to do. We have to make money. That's our guiding imperative above everything else. But yeah, like it's, you know, it's a false pursuit of resources. It takes you away from the world into this fictional idea of like, I'll get advantage over, you know, Pete if I've got more of the resources than he does come summer, winter. And that's true. But also, if you spend all your time thinking about that, then you'll neglect your kids and they'll hate you and they'll come and stab you in the back in the middle of the night. Not necessarily, you know what I mean? It's like, but you're neglecting what is the most important thing here is your time and attention with the people that you're with on the earth, because all of the other resources, you can't take them with you. And in the pursuit of them, you forget where you are.
Yeah. What would you think the thing that you would change if you had known all of this awareness at much younger age? What would you have changed, you think?
I don't know, because I feel like it's a waking up. I feel like it's sort of like an enlightenment or something, in that I so you were talking about self before and having all these different versions, people having different versions of self, right? And so the way that my mother thinks about me, and the last time we've spoken is like 5 years ago or something like that, is not an accurate representation, but also like she's not thinking that all the time. And I might be thinking about, and I was up last night for some reason, believing my nervous system again, and then going, it isn't real, Kirk, you're just regulating yourself. Thinking that other people thought this about me and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, they're asleep, they're not thinking that. I'm the only person that's thinking that.
Busy dialogue with yourself.
And that's why I can't go to sleep, because my mind's busy thinking about this stuff and I'm regulating myself up as though this is real. Who even am I? Like, I'm not me unless I'm thinking about me. The rest of the time, I'm playing the bass. Yeah. I'm just this guy. It doesn't really require identity.
Yes.
In fact, it's kind of in the way, because...
That's the thing, we get put into categories, yeah?
Oh, it's in the way, because I've got to be a servant to the music. Like, if I'm an athlete, I want to catch that ball. I don't want to be thinking about, oh, I'm Kirk and I'm the best, you know?
All these dialogues, I think you're not the only one to have dialogues.
Well, it is, and then you realise everybody is like just confined by these stories that they think they need to negotiate the world. And then they look at somebody like me and they go, oh my God, you are so unself-conscious that it's almost a disability. I'm kind of frightened for you, man. Like, because you're not protecting yourself against other people. It's like, I don't care.
Well, one thing that when you are so not self-conscious, I think when I from my experience is when I see somebody and it's like maybe they play music or so, and when I heard music from afar, let's say I was walking down the street in Melbourne and in the middle of the city, going into museum, and I heard this beautiful music. It's like, where's that music coming from? Where's it? Like my emotions just get drawn into that. Like, that's something beautiful. I cannot stop. I went into the museum, but like as I go into the museum and I say to the security guy, where's the music come from? He just go like this.
Right.
He doesn't know. I went in the museum really quickly just to look, because I was thinking maybe I'll go back later. And I came out. I don't know why, but I just wanted to go look for where that music comes from. And then you know what was so funny? I got out, I walked, there's a lot of tourists. Once the tourist group sort of moved away a little bit, I started to see this beautiful, handsome man. He's of African ethnics. And the funny thing is I've met him and I say, oh, what are the chances? He was, the liquor,
vibing hard.
The liquor shop next to the beach hotel. One rainy afternoon, evening, early evening, almost 9 o'clock. He was standing there, and he's got this beautiful bag. And I said, "Is that a kora or a ngoni?" And then he said, "It's a kora." The African is. And then we just started talking. And then he said he was on the way to Woodford Festival to play there, and waiting for his sleep to go to Malambimbi. And then he said to me one thing. "Oh, for sure, when you come to Melbourne, I'm there. Come and
Oh, I
find."
know that guy.
You see,
Amadou.
Amadou. Oh my God!
Yeah.
You know, Amadou was
Yeah,
supposed to do podcast with me on Saturday,
Right.
but he got so busy with his project, so I didn't do podcast.
He
So
came
he's
and
coming
found
to
me on the
Byron.
beach one time.
He's coming to
And
Byron.
he said, "It will happen. You will play at festivals like I do."
Yeah, he's a beautiful
so good.
heart. And so I was talking to him, and I said, outside the beach hotel, and he said, "Oh, when you come to Melbourne, I'll be there." And then we didn't exchange numbers, right? So we didn't exchange any account on social media. There you go. He was there playing, and I just run and. You remember, it's like we remember each other, and then so.
And he is, like as you describe, he's a really graceful human. And he's that same sort of, because what's happened in his lineage is like the Kora, one of his ancestors was one of the first people in this lineage to play that instrument. And that's kind of like, so he's inherited this and he's a custodian of it. And he's, in a very real sense, he's a servant to the music. And so when you watch him play, he's stripped away of all that boundary stuff and like, I'm just a servant to this instrument that not just me, but my ancestors had a relationship with. And I need to do that justice.
I mean, to play instruments, you know, all you know all the techniques and the ways to do that, all the theory, but to play emotionally, with emotions, you know, that makes me feel as an audience. I couldn't have, I went to look for him, and it was just when music reaches you like that, it tells you something about the person who's playing the music, and that's why I find like so fascinating. So we agree, we always do a podcast like, "Oh, I have Saturday for free," and then he got so hooked up to the project, so he apologized about that. But it's just really the thing with art is that it doesn't see gender, ethnics, whatever. You're just drawn into that because of art being the foundation. You become. I don't know where we were, what we were talking about. Did we end up talking about?
Yeah, we were talking about boundaries. And like how I sort of almost pathologically didn't have them.
In the categories.
And people thought that I had.
I say that when you have categories,
But more sort of the way that I'm unself-conscious, and I don't, like, it's not that I don't know that people are, they're out to get me. I'm just not letting that affect my nervous system.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like when it happens, it's like, "Oh, we'll take it, buddy. I've lost stuff before and I'll lose it again and I'll have more." I'm not like, don't rip me off. Like, I'll kick your ass, but not like I'm not bringing that because I don't want it to detract away from my time and attention away from the music, which I love and I'm a servant to. So I'm just doing that. And like that's what somebody like Amadou does, and you can see it. It's that he is just so graceful because he doesn't have any boundary between him and the world, and then the music can get out. And with anybody, an athlete, a musician, an artist, like there's a certain point, where you can be incredibly skilled and you can have all of this stuff, but there's still ego attached. But in order to be it like timeless and great, you have to transcend ego. You have to get to the point where you are just a servant to that thing. And even people like Luciano Pavarotti, who are known for having massive egos off stage, you watch him sing and he's just in that frequency. That's what it is. And he's creating all those resonant spaces there. And there's not a whole lot of, like every now and then it'll flash in when after he's done the Vincero in Nessun Dorma, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm the boss." But before that, it was just pure raw emotion, and you're just like, "Oh," and that's what makes your whole nervous system like, "Oh, that just happened in front of me. I've got goosebumps." Yeah.
That's true.
And that is transcending identity. Because wherever you are in that thing, that pursuit of that art or that sport or whatever, like people that thought they were the best surfer in the world before Kelly Slater came along, then Kelly Slater started surfing like nobody else had ever surfed before, and he was doing all these different things. And if he'd been limited by what everybody thought that you could do in the past, then he wouldn't have done them. But now that he's done them, and he's retired from professional surfing, everybody surfs like that now.
Yeah.
So it's in the collective, knowledge pool. So people learn from other people's ingenuity, and so and they then future generations of surfers will be far better than Kelly Slater. And it doesn't really matter about Kelly Slater's individual ego in that context.
Yeah.
It's like you did something useful, mate, for the whole group, but everybody in the future is going to be way better.
Yes.
Because that's how we work as a species.
That's right.
We just confuse ourselves into thinking that it's all about individual advantage. How many cars do I have? How many women do I have? How many houses do I have? How many billions do I have in the bank? And then, that's the other thing. Those guys that are really rich, they become jealous of and they covet the beauty of just being guileless and just having no boundary to the world. And so, they acquire all the Fender Stratocasters because they see people like Jimi Hendrix, playing them. It's like, he's got all the charisma and all the women are looking at him. And it's like, well, why can't I have that? It's like, because you don't understand.
It's not the
that he has, he's listening to a frequency that you can't hear because you're focused on the frequency of money.
It's true, yeah. Wow. Wow.
Wind it up? Yeah.
This is such a profound conversation. I'm really thankful that you come and have this conversation, as I think your life experiences have a lot of insightful parts that somewhere along the line many will resonate and take lessons from or find them very useful as well. Also, like, you're new to Byron and you're now
I've been accepted very fast. Yeah.
Integrated,
and I'm very grateful for that.
Byron, and one of our value community members, because you are practicing art out there, spreading a lot of joy, and that's one thing that I really appreciate what you do as well here. The recognition of yourself being an artist here, whether you call yourself an artist or not, but the fact that you practiced and then you found your way into this. It's amazing.
That was a whole discussion I had to have with myself about the time I started playing with Marshall. I play other instruments, obviously, yes. But I'm a singer and all that sort of stuff, but I had a harmonica because I could travel with one. And I thought, when I come into this new musical community, they're going to have their own pecking orders and their own lurks and gigs and stuff, and they're going to have their own thing, and they don't want me busting and going, see how good I am? It's like, so I showed up with the attitude of, how can I be useful to you? And then, and I showed up with that when I was homeless as well, because I realized having lost everything suddenly, was devastating, was enormous, because I'd been a health professional and now I was on the street with these people that had been on the street for ages, but they'd got used to it. They'd got used to this is the way it is. And I needed to be there quickly. So I needed to find out where the free feeds were and where I could sleep and where I couldn't sleep and where I was going to get in trouble and what was going to happen. And then I started to see these gaps in what they were doing. I'm like, nobody's hustling here. It was in Launceston. So I went to the food court as it was closing down, and I went and collected all the food. You got any leftover food? I'll take it back to the shelter. And they're like, oh, no, we've got health and safety. All right, that's fine. I'll go to the next place. Kept asking, kept going back. Wow. Consistently, people give me food. I take it back to the shelter. They thought, oh, that's good. We didn't want to chuck it out anyway. I'd take it back to the shelter, and they'd be like, you're the man. I'd get social capital from that. But most importantly, if I fed everybody else, then I'd eat, And so those strategies of helping other people with what they're doing musically and helping younger people, because I want to leave a legacy of like, well, I'm not going to be here forever. Like I'll be here for a while, and I want to leave a good legacy.
Yeah.
And that's the way I can do that, is that you have all these neurodivergent kids who've come up here for the tones and eye busking experience, and they've launched themselves fully in the flow of their, you could almost build a tourist package around it. And they've launched themselves into the flow of what they're doing. They're at the arts factory and they're at the jam nights.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, have you got any original songs? So I've written one, but, you know, I keep meaning to get somebody to record it. It's like, well, where can I find you? Do you have a, you know, Joe Blogs music page? Oh, no, it's just really, it's like, well, dude, you need a product. It's like you can't keep flowing forever in 2-chord vamps and just being in the vibe. Like, if you want to be a better servant to the music, then we need to introduce some lyrics, some chord changes, some calibration with other players, some making other people, so get to know some people, get a product, back yourself. And then when I say that to them, I'm like, that's what I needed to hear. Thank you very much. I told myself my own advice.
Yeah.
It's like that's who I was telling the whole time.
Yeah. So having all this that you went through now, what do you tell yourself the first thing in the morning? Do you have anything like that? And the last thing you say to yourself before you go to bed? Do you have anything?
I've returned back because as I said, my head was getting a bit busy again. And I've just returned back to this daily gratitude practice, which was something that, you know, it's like recommended through a 12-step. And, you know, now psychologists have studied it and they've got, you know, pretty flow charts and stuff that demonstrate statistically how being grateful is really good for your mental health. Who would have thought it? I mean, obviously, Blind Freddy could see that if you approach the world with a, like, you know, humility and gratitude. Like there was this big mosquito somehow had got into my room last night and was eating me. And I was like, oh, I'm not happy. But when I started the day, I was like, you got a roof over your head, you got a room. You know, you can like put mosquito repellent up here. There are walls, you know. This is a nice place to live.
Yeah.
You're lucky, considering what I've been through. I'm lucky to have a home. Not lucky in sort of like in a pathetic way, which is what I was in rehab, but no, like everything that I've got right now, the only time I can ever have something or feel it is right now in this moment.
Yeah.
And I should be grateful for that in this moment. Yeah. So, should we leave it there? Oh, you've got another question?
No, I wanted to ask you, what would you like to say to anybody who's struggling, who's going through maybe some really difficult times in life, because you've gone through that and you've come out of it, and you're now at a certain pace in your life. What would you like to? Do you have anything at all that you would like to maybe say that might be helpful to someone to listen to?
I would say, honor your future self. Even if you're going through some self-loathing, however you feel about yourself at the moment, there is a person in the future that you can't see yet because it's uncertain, that has all this potential and all this growth, and it's limited by you hurting yourself. Treat it as if it was somebody else that you deeply cared about, a child or a potential version of you that's worth investing, and back that person 100% in all your deeds and actions, but not in a way that seeks to take away unfairly from other people. Yeah. Just in a way that shows up respectfully in a boundaried way with yourself. And if you do that, and you do it consistently, whatever state of internal turmoil you're in, I promise you there's a way out of that. But you just can't see it yet until you get far enough out of it to go, oh, that was the way.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you so much, dear Kirk. I really am grateful. Thank
No,
you.
no worries at all. It's my pleasure.
And maybe in future I'll ask you to come back again.
Oh,
It's
for
such
sure.
a beautiful conversation. Absolutely appreciate it. And for sure we'll jam again.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very keen.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
No worries.